Today we are here to consider the Level 2 F&G grievance appeal submitted by Priscilla de la Fuente-Corneil, parent of Tiago Corneil de la Fuente, a first grade student at Creekview Elementary School during the 2022-23 school year. For the record, my name is Dr. Stephen Gutierrez, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Tomball Independent School District and designated by policy F&G Local to hear and make decisions regarding the family's complaint from Level 1. Today is Thursday, May 4th, and it is approximately 10:43 a.m. This meeting is being held at Level 2 in accordance with Board Policy F&G Local. Ms. De La Fuente Corneil supplied the district with a written grievance on April 20th, 2023. In order to provide the most accurate recording possible, an audio recording of this proceeding is being made. Please avoid talking while others are speaking so that the recording will reflect the proceeding accurately. If requested, we will provide you with a copy of this recording upon written request. For the record, I will ask each individual present to clearly state his or her name and position. If you have a representative present, there are no representatives here today. So for the record, will you please state your name?
Sure. My name is Priscilla de la Fuente-Corneil, and I am mom of Jimena, Tiago, and Matias Corneil, who are all at Creekview Elementary.
Awesome. And again, for the record, my name is Stephen Gutierrez, Chief Operating Officer and Level 2 Hearing Officer. I will now outline the proceedings for this Level 2 grievance appeal conference. The Level 2 appeal will be conducted in accordance with the district's F&G policy. This is a grievance appeal presentation and not a formal evidentiary hearing. So that means there will be no questioning, no cross-examination of adverse witnesses. This is your opportunity to fully detail your complaint and the facts you allege underlying your complaint. You should also detail the remedies that you are requesting so that I will make a fully informed decision. Within the specified timeline, in 45 minutes, you will make your presentation and present any documents that you believe are relevant. I may have some follow-up questions based on something that you present or that you share. Do you think that you'll need more than 45 minutes? Okay. I can give you an extra 5 additional minutes if needed. Okay, so if there are no questions, you can now begin with your presentation.
Okay. Well, I filed the grievance before we had any opportunity to speak to you because it was stated that this was going to be moving forward faster than normal, and I wanted to make sure that I also moved faster than normal. So since then, I've had an opportunity to listen to you speak twice at the town hall and at the special board meeting earlier this week on Tuesday. So I guess I can state it for the purposes of the recording, but I do feel like the way that the school district decided to change what was intended originally in the proposal of the bond is illegal or shady or not ethical or whatever you want to call it. According to the Texas Education Code, Section 45, it states that according to the Texas Education Section 45, a school district may use the unspent proceeds of an issued general obligation bond only for the specific purposes for which the bonds were authorized, to retire the bonds, or for purpose other than specific purposes for which the bonds were authorized if the specific purposes are accomplished or abandoned, and the board and trustees at a public meeting held only for the purpose of considering the use of the unspent bond proceeds approves in a separate vote the use of the proceeds for a purpose other than the retired bonds and the purpose specified at the time the vote is taken. So I know we've talked about this a lot. I know you guys have said that you don't think the wording means anything, that that doesn't mean anything. I guess that it's open enough that you guys were able to use the bond money for other intentions because it wasn't specifically stated on the bond that it was for an elementary school, which is correct. And I think, I guess as a realtor for many years, I should have known. It's kind of like a contract. There's no good faith. If you want something done, it needs to be written clearly in the contract. And I guess I didn't do my due diligence beforehand and read the ballot and say the ballot doesn't specifically say that it's going to be an elementary school. I never thought that it would affect it. It was a long list. I think there was 14 points on Proposition A. So I just felt it was more of a space thing, and they were, wording it that way for space, not necessarily because one of those things could possibly change in the future. And I understand that the wording on the ballot was vague enough and that it just says new new buildings, maybe new schools, and that you guys didn't specifically say in the elementary on the wording. However, I think it's wrong. I think if you come to a school and you hold a meeting and you present something to the public, that the public puts their trust in you that that's what you're going to do. And I know there's been a lot of talk about whether it was for Creekside, and you specifically say that it was going to affect some of us in Creekside. But the understanding we had, because I know Mr. Lee also said, we never, I don't think we specifically ever said it was not going to affect Creekside. But our understanding was that it was going to be not only for Tomball Elementary School and Decker Prairie and some of the other ones that were also overpopulated, it was going to pull below Creekside. So we thought it was going to pull below Burroughs Park. That was our understanding as a community.
Just that piece.
Yeah, but it wasn't only going to be to serve that piece. It was going to serve.
No, but I'm saying that was, I didn't mean that, but that was the understanding that only sort of that piece.
It was going to be below Burroughs Park, plus all the kids that you would have to rezone from Tomball, from Decker Prairie, from Grand Oaks, all the other schools that were overpopulated that are now is my understanding, going to go to West. I never focused on West because it wasn't in our area. It wasn't going to affect us. So I didn't know. Now I know that some of those schools are maybe overflooding into West because West has the capacity now. Actually, they're going to be under capacity probably if you didn't pull from Tomball Elementary, right? So that wasn't in our understanding. In the beginning, when you guys purchased the BJ's company or Baker Hughes, we were like, oh, that would be great. Maybe they'll put a high school there, which, we knew wasn't going to really happen, but that was kind of our hopes because the high school is kind of far from us. So definitely, we didn't go out and vote for the bond thinking it was going to be for an intermediate school. I would never want to send my fifth grader there. I've been going to Creekview Elementary for 4 years. Before then, my kids were in preschool and Spanish Schoolhouse, which is directly behind Creekview Elementary. We have biked every single day to school through tornadoes, through storms, through anything. I think with the exception of maybe 3 times when we've had doctor appointments or needed to go on a trip from there, pick them up and go to the airport. We have biked. I have never been in a car line in my life. I don't even know what you have to do. Sometimes my kids are like, can you pick me up in the car? I'm like, I don't have the card. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. So for me, that was huge. It was a big impact. And it wasn't what we voted for. We voted for the idea of if they build a new elementary school, then our schools won't be so full. And obviously, I understand. It's like you guys say, we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't understand that the school was going to grow this big or the area was going to grow this big. They're developers. If they have the opportunity to make money building homes, they're going to make it. And there was only so much land left. Creekside's built out. There's nowhere else they can go.
Right.
And obviously, they were going to build as far as they could. I know that one of those communities, we felt it was unfair in some senses as well because there was a section of it that was supposed to be a park. And there was a billboard that had a park, and we were excited we were going to have a new park. And then guess what? There's new homes. It's a company. Their job is to make money.
And we even found that when a lot of that, I think Mr. Ross mentioned that a lot of that was initially platted as single-family homes, but as 55 and older, they were calling it senior living. Well, it's still platted as single-family homes, but they removed the senior living, which that has a huge impact on what we would consider to be the yields on that, right? You're not expecting home students to be coming out of senior living, right? And so certainly to that point, a developer is going to do whatever they can.
So we understand that. We understand that maybe from that perspective because we felt the same way. We also didn't think that parts of those areas were going to be new homes or areas that were green. We thought maybe we're going to stay as green spaces. Like I said, one of them was intended to be a park originally, and then they decided to build new homes. So the fact that Creekside specifically, because that's where we go, is overcrowded, I understand that. And I know a lot of, I guess I don't really like it because I'm Mexican and I don't like the talk about, they're leaving Mexico because of the cartel and whatever. I don't really appreciate that because in the end, there's new homes. So whether it is the huge influx of Mexicans coming, it is, it's real. It's a mini Mexico. I live in it. It's real. It's a huge influx of Mexicans coming to school. But even if it wasn't Mexicans, even if it was people from California, there are new homes. There are a ton of them. So there are new homes that are being filled with families regardless of race or where they come from. And I understand that that's a problem and we have to solve it. But I don't think that the board went around it properly. I think that they should have voiced their concerns first. I don't think that you guys should have made a decision without looking at all the implications of it before you made a decision. Even the special board meeting that you did have with the Board of Trustees, there was a presentation which two people gave, and there was no in-depth study of anything. And then the board said, yeah, okay, this sounds like a great idea. And I understand the board, because I think if someone comes to you and they present you a solution, you just think, yeah, this is great. But I think that more of those things should have been looked into before saying, hey, guess what? We're going to build a new school. It's going to be an intermediate now. Now all of Creekside, 5th and 6th grade, is going to go there. Well, that affects me not only for my 5th grader that goes there, that affects my other kids, because I can't bike them to school if I have to drive my daughter to the other school. That means they're all screwed. If I have to drive her there, the kids have to get up with me to go drop her off 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it takes, depending on traffic. And then I'm going to come back. I'm not going to go home, park the bike, get their backpacks. I'm just going to drive them to school. So it does affect the other grade levels as well. It's not only 5th and 6th grade that will be affected. I think that it went around the wrong way. I think that if you guys wanted to make a change in the intended use of the bond money, I think that it should have been discussed more in depth beforehand. I think that way more research should have been done. I think that if it's mainly affecting Creekside, then we should have looked for options that would have benefited those in Creekside, like closer. I know, I totally understand there's very little land, but I don't think that there is ever only one solution to anything. I think there are always multiple ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of things that could have been researched before just making this decision. I also thought it was grossly unfair that we got an email Thursday. I didn't read it. I get a million emails. We have soccer, ballet, we're up and down. And I heard someone outside of school talking about it. And I said, where did you see this? I didn't get that email. You're crazy. And I did have the email. I just didn't read it. So the next day, or on Monday, it was, I guess, my husband and I went out to the schools, and half the people that I spoke to did not know about this change. So I felt like it was very unfair that there was a town hall set from Thursday to Monday. It didn't give people, like, over the weekend, people have family activities, parties, reunions, whatever. You kind of disconnect from your normal life and your routine. So I felt like it was a real unfair disadvantage to us, because it didn't give us a lot of time to do our due diligence and our research, to come and have a proper conversation with you guys. And also, we were just very heated. So it's hard to have a decent conversation when you're, overly excited or anxious or upset about anything. I know your stance on the language of the ballot, because you've mentioned it before. I don't expect you to agree that you're wrong, because, you can't do that. You can't sit here and tell me I'm wrong and I made a mistake, or maybe it's not correct. But I do want to know, how can I change this? Because I felt like recently there had been some changes, for example, where now you have to have separate points for voting, right? Like, you can't just have different propositions. And my understanding was that the whole idea of that was transparency. And it was so that you were more clearly voting for a specific thing versus just loading everything into one and then saying, well, we didn't do this, but we did do that. And it's pretty much what happened with Proposition A. There was maybe too many things on the ballot it was easy to push some under the rug. I'm sure I know people highly desire new high schools. So I feel like if you guys had said we're now no longer building the Jurgen High School, you would have had a lot of people very upset as well. And I think you would have had to do some explaining there also. So I just don't think it was fair the way it was done. I don't think that you should be able to go and talk to a community and explain to them how, this is a great idea. This is going to help with overcrowding in your school, and then come in and say, well, that's not what we meant. Or, you know what? Yeah, you voted for that, but we've changed our mind, and now we're going to do something else. And it's okay to do that, but I think you have to do it the proper way. I think you have to take a revote, or at least the minimum you can do is your due diligence and investigate and explore all other options possible before making that decision. So I'm not here to try to convince you on anything. I'm just trying to explain how we as a community felt like it was wrong. I honestly thought it was a great idea. I thought it's great if they have a new elementary school there. I know the one in Tomball is packed full. It's going to pull other kids out of this school, maybe not a ton, but I don't know, is it 100 kids? 100 kids less out of 900 is a lot. It makes a big difference. And there's still a lot of kids that are there with open enrollment that will eventually grow out if open enrollment is no longer available. So I thought it was a good solution, but I never thought it was going to affect us. Our understanding was that it was not meant to be Creekside. It was meant to be Tomball, Decker Prairie, Grand Oaks, and anything below Burroughs Park. That's how at least I viewed it, and I know anyone else that I spoke to as well. None of us thought Creekside was going to be pulled out. That's not the way it was really presented to us, or at least not the way we understood it. And that's about it. I mean, I guess I never expected the administration or the board to say, yes, we're wrong. That's kind of a big thing to admit when you're in such a high position. But I would like to know how else I can research or investigate this further as to how do you not make propositions to people and market things to people that aren't really what you intend? Or how do I make sure that in the next bond, which will come eventually, the wording specifically states what's going to be done? Because if it needs to change, I want to make sure that there's a vote. I want to make sure that there's community input. I want to make sure that there's investigation behind it, not just what the administration and the board of trustees thinks is good for people. Because most of you don't live where we live. Most of you aren't affected the way we are affected. So I think it needs to have community input in order to make those changes. So what can I do? What can I do going forward to make sure that we don't feel like we were deceived and that whatever is put on the bond is more specific?
Now, I'm really not the appropriate person to advise you on that. I'm here to listen to the grievance and then consider the remedies that you're requesting. But as far as the specific strategy, obviously for a presentation and legal and bond counsel to give our perspective on 45-1101, I think it was 45-1110 so I think that you kind of understand what would be the basis of our argument there. But as far as the next steps, I wouldn't be that person to advise you on what next steps that you should take on that.
No worries. I can do some research on that. Thanks. I guess on a personal level, aside from what my grievance was intended for, I don't understand the position of the administration, because I feel like you have made a decision or you have this ideal of the intermediate school, but no one aside from this last special board meeting, I felt like the board of trustees were trying to dig into what other options were, but I don't feel like the administration has ever presented itself that way. I feel like you guys, you're like me, you're stubborn. You're stubborn and you made a decision and you thought it was a great plan. And I do understand the idea of it relieving the overcrowding in the school. But one solution is always not the best solution. And there may be way more cons to that plan than there is pros for the families. I understand the school district wants to make it even across the board. No, I also don't understand it because Dr. Salazar Zamora says once 5th grade is gone from Creekview, great, we'll add a pre-K. So to me, that doesn't really solve an overcrowding problem. That just means you're shifting my kids. And honestly, we're in a pretty affluent neighborhood. Most people there put their kids in a private preschool. I'm not saying that if you didn't offer a preschool, people wouldn't take advantage of it. They would actually, it would probably be successful because we have so many English as a second language students. And if you can go to preschool for free, why not, right? But it's not solving the problem. It's also not making it even across the board. Not every other elementary has pre-K to 4th grade. Most of them are kindergarten to 4th grade.
And actually, with to provide a little context on that, the state is really moving towards requiring pre-K, and they've actually that is campuses that don't have it have to have a waiver, and so our buildings really don't accommodate for pre-K because not only do you have to have the classroom space, really it's ideal to have the restrooms right there or like a shared restroom where you're not going to waste a lot of time students coming in and out. So really, our facilities were not designed for that, and that was really a big reason for putting for building the Early Excellence Academy as the pre-K center, so we can bring all students there. At least on the north side right now, hopefully down the line be able to do something like that on the south side to fulfill and be in compliance with the law. And so some of that is really the impetus for why, like, you want to know, like, why would we say that? It's really to, as you mentioned, there could be a need out there that maybe families are not taking advantage of, and us being, complying with law and providing.
Yeah, but that's a total contradiction of your plan, because your plan is to ease enrollment, and that won't. That will just be shifting grade levels. That's not easing any enrollment. So if you take away, I don't know, how many students are in fifth grade? However many students in fifth grade, but you just replace it in Creekview alone. Mm-hmm. So if you replace that with pre-K, then you're not fixing enrollment at all. And it is a young
wouldn't
family
be like
community.
160. I certainly understand.
If it's the only one in all of Creekside, it will be, because she specifically said we would probably put it at Creekside because it's the largest school. So that means it would probably serve all of Creekside. So don't be surprised if it's more than 160. It's a very young community. And eventually that'll phase out. I'm sure the demographic studies will show that as well, right? Like, as we get older, we will have less and less.
So the regeneration of the neighborhood, right?
Yes.
And then people sell, and they get new homes coming in.
Yeah.
Sort of like that cycle, but it takes.
So I can see that, but that cycle will take a while too, and especially because it is an amazing community. So I don't see a lot of people needing to leave. The only reason really I've heard of any people leaving is because their kids get to high school age and they maybe choose the Woodlands High School over Tomball, and then that's maybe why they want to leave. Other than that, I don't see why people would want to leave Creekside. We have everything there. We've got Walmart and H-E-B and Ace, and I never leave it. I really don't. So it's huge to us. I mean, having to bring my kids to school when we've biked every single day for the last 6 years, really, because they were in pre-K and Spanish schoolhouse, and now being like, we can't bike to school anymore. I mean, my kids were all crying. So it is a big deal to us. And not just me, but everyone else in the community. It wasn't what we voted for. And so it feels wrong that you are switching it without consulting us. And I feel like there are definitely options that need to be explored that would hugely benefit Creekside. And it would be a better solution than putting the intermediate at the Innovation Center. The other thing I said at the board meeting, and it was just because I'm like, well, there's only one thing I can talk about. So it was exploring other options, like doing a language center. If you want to ease enrollment in other elementary schools, why not make it enticing to people? Why not offer something extracurricular that other elementary schools maybe don't offer? I mean, Cypress Rosehill does it. And when my daughter was in pre-K, the very first year, she was in Alianza, and the school district came to us and invited us to this program because it was a pilot year, and I really wanted her to do it. I really, really wanted her to do that. But I had twins that were only 6 months old at the time, and it was going to be a 45-minute drive from my house here to drop her off at school, then to go back, then to come back again to pick her up, then to go back to home. And with twins in the car, I thought that was unfair to them. So we never did it. But we have a lot of friends from our previous school that love the program. They love it. So I don't understand why, we talk about education opportunities being equal across the board. Other schools should have that as well.
We are looking at that. Actually, in the previous board meeting, we talked about the expansion of that to the intermediate level, and certainly, the south side, we have a one-way, two-way dual language, and so plans certainly for exploration there. I definitely thought it was a good comment about, exploring other languages. In the previous district, I worked with a school district that did Mandarin, that it was the first Arabic language, right? So there's definitely certainly a lot of need.
I grew up in a bilingual school.
And so people would love it, right? And so part of that's just balancing, all of the needs, because with that comes a ton of resources. And so it's, hopefully you see this about Tomball. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it really well. That's the attempt, and I can promise you that's our goal and vision for going into it, is we want to do right by kids and families. So with that being said, trying to scale up, want to make sure our two-way dual language program is strong before we, potentially expand. And right now we're really getting to that next step of getting to the intermediate, with down the line what would it look like for students to take high school courses in Spanish, and the difference between just conversational Spanish and academic language, and you're talking about math and literature, is a completely different level, right? And so, but that is the goal, right? And so, but certainly understand your point about the two-way dual language programs.
I mean, I think if you had open enrollment for that, that would pull a lot of people from not just Creekside, but a lot of the other schools. I mean, we live in a super diverse community. If you went down my street, I think there's maybe we live in a small neighborhood, there's 42 houses, and I think 6 of the families are from Texas. Everyone else is from some other place. So it's hugely diverse. It's so important for kids to speak a different language. So I think doing something like that, I'm just saying, let's look at other opportunities. There's other ways to ease enrollment than just building an intermediate and having everyone from Creekside have to come here. We go down Huff Smith every day. My husband works in the Galleria. He drives up Huff Smith. It takes him 30 minutes on that tiny little piece of land. And it's one of my favorite roads. I love it because there's horses and it's covered with trees and it's so pretty, but it's so frustrating when you can't move. There's no way to go. I mean, no, there's no accidents, maybe because you're going slow because there's a lot of curves, so you can't actually speed, you can't pass, you can't do anything. So all you need is patience. But it's going to be a disaster if we have to all drive down that road to go to the Innovation Center. So those are my concerns, and I really appreciate you taking your time to hear me.
No, I appreciate you for going through all that. And then the remedies that you're requesting.
My remedy would be to put it to vote. My remedy would be to have a public meeting, put it to vote, and to look at all other options.
Then we say put to vote for the board, put to vote for the public, just so that I understand.
Ideally for the public, but if the public can't vote, then the board should have a say in it. I feel like the board has had an opportunity to listen to our concerns, and I feel like there has to be a lot of research done. And then if we don't have the opportunity to vote, which I wish we would, then I feel like at the very least, the board should be able to have a vote. If you put this vote out for the community and the community decided that the Innovation Center was great, then that's that. That's democracy. And I would say I understand that I'm one person and that not everyone feels the same way as I do. But I have seen the outcry of our community. There's some of us who participate. There's a whole lot of us who have little kids in a very busy life and who, even though they really want to do something about it, they haven't taken the time out of their day to come and speak, to come to the board meetings. So I know that there's way more people even than we see participate that think this is a wrong move and that thinks that it's going to negatively impact our children.
So, okay, I have a couple of questions. Because the remedy you're asking for is to put it for a vote, and the board minimally, right, to do that. I'm just looking at the timeline, and I'm going to talk about that in the next step as far as when I'm required to respond is within the next 10 days. We won't even have a possibility to put an item on the agenda now that the board's already kind of done their process for reviewing the agenda. That's set for Monday's meeting. Mm-hmm. So really, I don't even have an opportunity to do what you're asking within my timeline, right? And so my goal as the hearing officer is to find resolution, and sometimes that's through this process. It's also to say, hey, we can find informal resolution independent of this. And so really kind of trying to find the spot of what is it exactly that you're seeking. And then the timeline, I guess I could jump into that a little bit. And then, are there any other information for your presentation? Okay. All right. Thank you. The Level 2 Grievance Appeal presentation is now concluded. I will now outline the process for reaching a decision in this case. Having heard Mr. Fuente-Corneil's Level 2 appeal, I may grant the decision, which means I believe your complaint is valid and that you should be granted the remedies you request. Having heard Ms. de la Fuente Corneil's Level 2 grievance appeal, I may alternately deny your appeal, which means that you should be denied the remedies you request. As a third option, I may grant or in part or deny in part of your grievance or remedies. In this decision-making process, I shall consider the grievance appeal presentation made at this hearing, as well as responses made in any further investigation I feel may be appropriate in reaching this decision in this matter. I will prepare a written response to this Level 2 appeal and send it to you within 10 business days from this date of this conference, as provided with the timeline set forth in the Tomball ISD grievance policy. And kind of like I was saying there, just kind of stepping out of the script, some of these I wouldn't even have the possibility to make happen in the next 10 days. And so I don't know if there's interest in, having heard what the last board meeting was, if there's an interest in withdrawing, that they're exploring, or I won't be able to do anything that's going to meet what you're asking for in the next 10 days. So is there flexibility to extend this time?
We can extend it, but I definitely don't want to withdraw it.
Okay. So I will.
I think by then, because I believe it's not on the agenda for the board meeting on Monday, is it?
No.
Okay, so I believe that just that has already, to me, signaled that they're going to do some research, and that's what they said. So I hope that they are actually doing that. So it gives me some peace that some of what I wanted is being done.
Okay. The exploration of other options.
Exploration of other options.
Okay. So I will do this. I'm required to respond in 10 days, so I will just in that piece, if I need to. I just wanted to ask if you'd be okay with if I needed an extension. Kind of once I go back and do my research and also consult with legal counsel, if there's an additional extension of time, I may reach out to that for an agreeable amount of time that's mutually agreeable, and then we'll go from there. But until then, I will at least I'll stick for now without having a definitive time. I'll stick with the 10 business days, and then afterwards, to a mutually agreeable time for when I would respond. Okay. So if there are no further questions, then we will conclude the conference. So thank you.
Thank you. I
appreciate your time.
Thanks. And if there's anything I can do to help look into other options, I'll help my mom, but I can definitely, we're willing. We are willing to do everything and anything to be your little ants and go work for you. So if there's anything we can do to help look into other options, I know your heart is set on one thing, but I beg you to consider other options. I truly do.
Absolutely. And I hope you hear at the meeting that the board has asked for that. I know the superintendent's already made plans based on conversation to do that exploration. And again, independent of the grievance process, one thing I hope folks do see, and I know that first town hall meeting, I don't think it went to anyone's plans, right, to go that way. But hopefully you'll see that folks in the district that work for the district and those who are on the board actually are trying to do their best for the best interest of students.
I think the board is interested in looking at other options. I know they mentioned at the board meeting, they were like, we should have maybe done all this before. But I do think that you and Mr. Ross are very stuck to your idea. I don't think that, you don't seem to me like you are having a very flexible approach to it. So I do hope that you consider other options. I know it seems like a great idea. I don't know when the BJ Services building was purchased. I don't know exactly what it was all intended for. It seems like a perfect opportunity because you have land and let's just use it and put the kids there. It seems like an easy solution, but it's one that's going to hugely impact our family. So I really hope that you guys consider other options.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.